the Rangers Journal Night.
Good evening, Internet. This is your Rangers Journal podcast for Wednesday, the 23rd of July, as Russell Martin's Rangers avoid a Greek tragedy against Panathinaikos in the first leg of our Champions League second qualifying round, first leg at Ibrox. Joining me to go through the game in a little bit more depth than last night is, first of all, Steph. Steph, how are we?
Not too bad. I've still lost my voice from screaming last night, so it means it's a sign of a good night.
I mean, you could lose your voice by shouting and bawling if we were rubbish. I've done it more than once, so I think it's always a good thing when we get the result. I'm also joined by my wonderful namesake, Ross Clark. Ross, how are we, mate?
Very good, mate. Trying to recover. I've just ingested a steak in 8 minutes there, so if I'm coughing and heaving my way through the pod, my apologies in advance.
Aye, but we're saying steak's always worth it. Doesn't matter. Steak's always worth it. And joining us right at the last minute, as always, fashionably late, is, of course, Mitch. Mitch, how are we, mate?
All the better for seeing your beautiful face, son.
You're just far too kind. You're far too kind to me. I'll see if you're being that kind come the end of the pod.
We also need to remind everybody that you are the reigning and defending champion of the Ross League at the moment. So the other Ross, pull your finger at this pod, son. There's points at play here. Ross Graham's at the bottom of the Ross list at the moment. He's my least favourite one.
Well, I'm sure by the end of this, we might have a movement in the standings. Of course, folks, get your questions in. We'll try and get through as much of them as we can as well. We really appreciate all your input as well. Excuse me, sorry guys. So Rangers last night in a very, very difficult first start for Russell Martin in the competitive football, drawn against Panathinaikos, the Greek giants, I suppose if you want to call them that, in the Champions League. A hard start, Steph, but I think the result probably doesn't tell the full story of the game, does it?
No, you could quite clearly see the type of football that Martin's trying to play, which for me was just amazing to see. We've been crying out for a style or a formation, even a bit of tactics, and we've finally got it. You could see it from kickoff, slow start. Obviously it was very, very tense. They looked nervous, but by the end of the game, who cares about the start? We won it. It was the main thing. But yeah, slow start, but that's just typically us.
I mean, old habits die hard, Ross, doesn't it? Even when Rangers have a complete refresh, new players, new owners, new everything, we're still going to start slow, aren't we?
I think what it is for me is that these qualifiers come at the same time every year, and historically over the last X amount of seasons, we go in at this stage and we never seem to quite be there. I know there's a major overhaul happening this year, and the standard we saw of the players last night, it looks as if we might have actually shopped in England right for once, which I'm sure we'll come on to speak about. But last night for me was about three things. It was about seeing an identity and a style of play. It was about seeing how fit the team looked this early on in the season. And most importantly, it was about getting a win. And I think that all three of the boxes were checked off by the team. And it was good to the day catch up on every Rangers podcast going to see all the wee nuances that other people were picking up, and to be excited about Rangers again, and just being all in with a manager. I've not felt that way since Gerrard left, where I've been totally, this guy gets it and this guy's going to play a brand of football that we want to watch. So I'm really excited.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think obviously the one thing that we've been consistently crying out for almost, it seems like years now, is a style of play. Mitch, we'll obviously break down the game in a little bit more detail, but Russell Martin from the very, very beginning has been adamant that he wants a team with intensity and courage. And I think that even one of the big outtakes you can take from the game is that when things didn't go well, their heads didn't go down. They weren't affected by, of course, we're Rangers fans, we're going to have a mode, we're going to have a groan, but the fans got behind the team as well, and they could see what we're trying to do. It's not perfect. This is the first competitive game, and what's been perhaps I don't want to say underwhelming, but perhaps quite a low-key pre-season for us, because we've not really seen a lot of it. We've seen Club Brugge, and that's it. and some highlights from behind closed doors. The only other thing we've seen is videos, and it's easy to portray what you want to see in a video of high intensity training. So this is the first time we've had the real opportunity to see what Russell Martin wants to implement. From that and from what we've seen, are you on board with it? Are you feeling positive? Unmute.
Said choo-choo, all aboard the Russell Martin Express at this point. You know, take us to Vegetable Land or wherever he's taking us to. Like, you know, I'm all aboard with it. Genuinely, I think in a lot of ways, our pre-season's actually been handled perfectly given the circumstances. Would Russell Martin maybe have liked to have had more games in the stadium or with fans there? Absolutely. But I think with the turnover of players and how the squad's looking and how the various bits and bobs need to get done with the squad behind closed doors, especially when he first came in, we didn't need to see that on the park, I don't think. You know, we didn't show us, like he did against Bruges, show us what the most likely starting 11s are going to look like and show us what the most likely core group of the squad's going to look like, where we can say, right, you, and you, we can clearly see you're probably going to be here for the season. And you, and you are probably going to be either on loan, out the door, or just not in the plans for the forthcoming season. And I think the only way he can make a really honest assessment of each player is to do it the way that he's done, is the time at St George's and the time away from fans. And weirdly, I think that's actually helped last night when the players went onto the pitch, because I think it's kind of forced the team to have a level of closeness together, where they go, they've been back 4 weeks, give or take. These last 4 weeks, they have literally lived in each other's pockets, breathed each other's space. They've formed their friendships. They know who they gel with, who they just need to be professional with. And I think you can't do that when you've got too many in stadium games, I don't think.
I think, absolutely. I think that's something that Russell Martin has been very, very adamant about, is that there needs to be a unity, because I think that whether it's right or it's wrong, there's been a lot of shade thrown at a lot of members of the squad. Whether it's true or not, I think is up to debate, depending on your opinions of previous coaches and previous members of staff. But what Russell Martin has been very adamant about, and Steph, I think you'll probably agree with me here, is that everybody gets a clean slate, whether we want to give them a clean slate or not. And obviously, we talk about players like Ben Davis, we talk about Kieran Dowell, we talk about, you know, these kind of guys that have been here, even Cyril Dessers, guys who are been on the, you know, whether you like them or you don't, they're all due a fresh start. And Russell Martin has to make his own judgment. He seems to come across as a very, very good judge of character so far from what we've seen. And it's about how players buy into that. He's been very adamant that if players don't buy in, I don't think we'll see them. And I think that obviously from what's been put out by, you know, the media and the inklings from himself. So the players that are there for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. I still think some are just kind of tagging along until he can get his own players in. You know, I know he really seems to like Dowell from an experienced player point of view, but he never has and never will be good enough for this Rangers team. He's just and I know he's not a winger, so you're playing him out of position and things like that, but it just offered nothing for me last night. I think that if Russell Martin gets the list of people that he wants to get, I don't think we'll see some of them in a Rangers jersey again, but I think he was absolutely correct to give them a chance, because you know, sometimes if there is a lack of style of play, you're obviously just run about like headless chickens. If he's given them a job to do and they understand that job, then they can flourish. So he's absolutely done it the right way to give them a chance, but you can have chance after chance and still prove you're not good enough, if that makes sense. So I agree, and I think I said it in last week's pod. You hear he's a fantastic man manager, and if he can get the best out of you, then he will. It's just determined whether you're actually good enough for his style of play. But as a person, he gives them all a clean slate, which you can't really ask for more than that.
Well, I suppose we've put it off long enough. Let's start to talk about some FITBA. Russell Martin, obviously, with his clean slate of team, I'm just going to bring this up for us all, obviously made by our own Doug. Thanks so much, Doug, for making it out for us. This was the starting lineup. Obviously, it was discussed on the pre-match. Mitch, I'll come to you first. Was that pretty much what you expected? Obviously, Jack Butland in goals, a back four of James Tavernier, John Souttar, Nasser Jiga, and Max Aarons playing at left back. A midfield three of Joe Rothwell, Mo Diamandi, and Nico Raskin, and Finlay Curtis on the left, Kieran Dowell, on the right, supporting Danilo up front. Was that probably to be expected?
Do you know, the only surprise for me was Curtis. And it's not anything a knock on Curtis. You know yourself, I'm a massive advocate for putting our own in the team. But I thought it was a huge call that Russell Martin got right last night, where quite clearly the boys had a phenomenal pre-season up to now. He's put the graft in there, and Russell Martin said, well, tell you what, go and stake a claim in a competitive game. Show me that you can do it and that you're not going to choke under the lights. And I will say that first team experience he was exposed to last season probably helped shape him to be ready for a game like that last night, of the importance of it. And I will say there's a level of credit that needs to go to both Clement and Barry Ferguson for that to a certain extent, which words that I never thought I would say, you know. But they've got the boy ready for the big stage. And the last night, the boy became a man. For me, you know, I do still think Bajrami would have done much more in the right than what Kieran Dowell did. Kieran Dowell ran like he had a pair of hot dog legs. You know, I've never seen a man so gangly not have any form of physical presence about him. You know, the man wanders a bit like a fart in a spacesuit. You know, that way you're just. But that's a separate entity and a separate issue in its own. But I don't think there was too much more in the way of a shock in the lineup and stuff, especially over. We knew that Hamza, for example, was a wee bit behind in fitness, so was Dessers. We knew that Gassama was a wee bit behind in fitness as well. So I don't think there was a lot of surprises in there. You're on mute.
No, sorry, my apologies. I don't think there's too many arguments with that. Finlay Curtis Ross has been a bit of a standout, going by all the reports, and from what we've seen in pre-season, he looks to be the next, or he could be, obviously potentially, don't want to put a label on it yet, the next thing to come out of the Rangers Academy, which admittedly over the last few years has not been very fruitful to Rangers. He's had experience. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think, did he come on at Old Trafford last year? He has had experience in these games playing for Rangers. So a game like this really shouldn't faze him, should it?
No. Actually, the reason I'm not a football manager is I would have hooked him at half-time. I would have hooked the three of them at half-time, to be honest. I didn't think it worked in the first half. But again, as Steph kind of alluded to, it's that Russell Martin taking him in, listening to his interview today. I don't want to pull folk off at half-time if I can give them a bit of learning. And what they're doing is right, but they're trying too much. He spoke a couple of times about Curtis dropping in and picking up the ball in the wrong position. Now, for me, as an armchair football fan watching that, somebody who played at a semi-decent level, I think the reason Curtis was picking the ball up in the wrong position is because we don't have a natural left back to open up that side of the park. So everything was having to go for Aarons into Rothwell or Raskin and back out to him. So by the time that's it, if you've got a natural left back, you can put balls in the channel for him to run onto. So I don't think that's him no listening to instruction or no taking part in the way the game should be running. I think it was a culmination of things, and that kind of ties into his counterpart on the right-hand side, who I think is playing the now because we don't have a natural left footer to play out there. When you look at Gassama, you look at Cortez, Bajrami, all right-footed players, and that system is, you're kind of going back to the Gerrard days, aren't you, where you've got two wingers who actually come in and play like tens, but are wanting to go inside and get shots away and play threaded passes.
We're all trying to get inside.
Some of them are playing more than others, Mitch. Some of us have retired for that game. Yeah, you think Kieran Dowell looks gangly? You should see me at that game. Dearie me.
This is folks. This is a family show. We'll try and keep it PG, but you know, this is not at my discretion to dictate what happens or who looks like what. I can't say anything. Trust me, I look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man for the Ghostbusters fans out there. Let's be honest. Leave you that image. Steph, obviously we're talking about the fullback, so we'll kind of come on to the kind of game as it is. Rangers started off really well. First kind of 5 minutes or so, we did start to make a chance. Nico Raskin broke from the midfield. We did have a little bit of possession of the ball, fires a shot wide, and then we seemed to be unable to play simple passes. Do you think that Russell Martin did speak after the game that we were probably too tense, we were probably trying to overplay it, not doing what the team have been trained to do? That was probably emphasised most by, as Ross spoke about, the fullbacks who are very clearly being told to move into midfield. You've seen it very, very clearly. You can go and watch many videos on the socials today, the breakdown of the game, where they are midfielders. They are moving in and playing there. Max Aarons is clearly not a left back. What we did see in the second half was obviously the benefit of him being on the other side, but we'll come to that. Is it just this case of, at the moment, square pegs for round holes?
Yeah, it is. You know, Aarons was his signing, so he's going to play him. He clearly doesn't fancy Jeffy. Jeffy's still Ross, he'll get there. But yeah, I almost felt like you could see it in his play that he was nervous and he wasn't comfortable on that side. And as Ross just said there, he wouldn't play a pass with his left foot in the channel. You know, a naturally left-footed player will just ping that one touch, or you know, play the triangles around, but using his favoured foot. And because he's been told to come inside, yeah, he's going to come inside on his favoured foot. But when he's coming inside, you had Raskin and Diomande were pulling out because they were coming in to cover the CBs, and then you have Raskin and Diomande stretching out to try and make those passages of play. But then he'd turn back onto an unfavoured foot, and it just really broke down. You could see throughout the game that Panathinaikos were targeting that side as well. They knew that he wasn't comfortable there. So, you know, I reckon it's just a matter of time before he moves over, but we get a decent left back in. It has to be. If Yilmaz doesn't seem to be in the picture anymore, and Jeffy doesn't seem like he's fancied just now, so he has to have, you know, priority try and get a left back in, because he has been a wee bit wasted on that side, because they tried really hard to get him, so you can tell he's got a bit about him, but yeah, didn't really work that well for him. It grew into the game a bit. He was nervous. He made a couple of misplaced passes, got the ball stole off him numerous times and put us under a bit of pressure. So you could see everybody. What I noticed, actually, whenever somebody made a mistake, other guys, at least 2 or 3 guys, were going up, shaking their hand, tapping their back, giving a wee word in their ear, saying, do you know what, it's all right. I didn't really see that last season or the season before. I seen a lot of finger pointing, blaming, and all the rest of it. So I think, as Mitch just said earlier, I think this time away to gel together, to get to know each other, to build that kind of camaraderie, seems to have worked. They didn't get on each other's back at all, really. A couple of times I think I've seen Suter and Tav, but that's just what they do. But yeah, Max Aarons, he will move to right back when we get a left back in. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. James Tavernier, I think, goes to the Connor Goldson school of pointing fingers. It's something that he's done, but we'll not have another Tav debate about that. Mitch, the wonderful, sometimes enigmatic Jack Butland, who had a great first 6 months at Rangers and then a god-awful 18 months, last night decided he remembered how to be a goalie. In the first half, he had three outstanding saves. The first one comes from poor defending between Mo Diamande and James Tavernier, in which they don't stop the cross, shot corner. There's a break of the ball that falls to, I believe it's the Panathinaikos number 9. I can't, correct me if I'm wrong. And Jack Butland throws himself to the left with a strong strong left hand, apologies, and puts it away. Don't get me wrong, we don't track the runner who hits it off the post and puts it away, but what a save for Butland. This is back to what we were expected from, isn't it?
Do you know, last night, Jack Butland, minus one particular incident, and we'll come on to it later on, I'm sure, obviously with the misplaced pass into Jigga, where he put Jigga under absolutely undue pressure that he didn't need to put him under, but this is what happens when you tell a shot-stopping keeper to play the ball with his feet. You know, he's going to make mistakes like that. But last night, for me, Jack Butland laid a huge claim back to say, this shirt is mine. Come rip it off my back. And I think the saves that you mentioned there in the first half, and it's great to look back at it in hindsight, obviously, that we've won, so it's great. But if it hadn't been for Jack Butland doing the fundamentals of a goalkeeper of keep ball out net, we would have found ourselves in a very different end of the first half. I think we could have quite easily found ourselves, 2-0 down in the reverse, and given ourselves a bit of a mountain to climb. I think whatever's went on with Jack, obviously at the tail end of last season and everything else in between, whatever's happened, I think he's reaped that rewards of a new goalkeeping coach come in who has experience as a goalkeeping coach, not somebody whose first job, it's not their first job as a goalkeeping coach, like was the case with McGregor last year, when he came in at Christmas time. I think Jack Butland is quite clearly somebody who has had the weight taken off his shoulders of whatever the weight was he was carrying last year. He was commanding in his box. He was vocal in his box. We even seen him get a bit spicy with one of their players as well. Obviously, they had a wee bit of argy-bargy, and you're like, where is that? That's the passion, hunger, and desire that we didn't see last season for Jack. And I think it was nice to see he's either had a massive vegan-sized boot up his backside during pre-season, or he's had a cuddle and been told, it's all right, let's go again. Whatever methodology Russell Martin and the coaching team have done, fair play to them, because they brought Jack Butland back out to life last night.
I think so. Russell Martin in the summer had said that if a player becomes available that improves his squad, he would try and go out and sign it. We have been linked, perhaps loosely, with goalkeepers from England, but until such times as that changes, it was probably a 50-50 choice between Jack Butland or Liam Kelly. One for, as Mitch said, Jack Butland is a better goalie, probably at keeping the ball out the net, which we like in a goalie. And Liam Kelly is probably more of a footballer, if that makes sense. I mean, if Jack Butland keeps the ball out the net and keeps Rangers in football games, that's really the most important thing, isn't it really? Or is the idea of football philosophy more important, do you think?
When Russell Martin first came in, he said, if you can't do what we want to do, then you'll not be here. I think, and you have heard me in the group chat all day talking about this, Jack Butland in Europe never worries me. He's always consistent in Europe when he's a bit more under the cosh. Where did these big major mistakes come last year? Games at Ibrox against Motherwell, St Mirren, Kilmarnock, when he's only involved for 10 minutes out of the 90, and for the other 80 he's sitting, and well, he's no sitting, I would hope he's no sitting, but he's standing, and I think it's a concentration thing with Butland. He's obviously a very good goalkeeper, but if you're wanting to play a possession-based football and you're wanting to try and drag teams out, I still don't know that if you're playing against a Livingston at their park, is Jack Butland the guy that's going to step out and become part of a back three and be able to play wee triangles? By the way, they played a great wee triangle textbook last night. Rothwell played it back to Butland. Butland invited the press, played it out to Aarons at left back, and the fans were going grumble, grumble, grumble. And that's what we need to get. We need to get used to that now, because that's the way it's going to be. And over the course of a season, I'll be happy to eat a big portion of humble pie, but it's the games against the kind of lesser teams that worry me with Butland, to be honest. Can I just say as well, if I go to say, when we were talking about Finlay Curtis, everybody's talking about Jack Butland and the 2 saves he made that contributed. The boy Curtis, 2 impeccably timed tackles on the edge of your box that are potentially every bit as important as the goalie goes on to score. And for a young boy of 19 making his Champions League debut, to be putting in those tackles and no shirking his responsibility on the defensive side, I think is a massive credit to him as well. That's kind of gone under the radar a wee bit because he scored at the other end.
Definitely. I would like to just clarify, this is not the scores of the guys at the Journal. This is provided by FootMob. These ratings, these are not ours. So please, at the end, we'll obviously ask the panel for the man of the match. So please get your own shout in there, and if we get any outstanding ones, we'll bring them up. Steph, one guy that I think has been under a bit of pressure, rightly or wrongly, is John Souttar. He's been, there's been issues and discussion with him over transfers and over contracts and things, but for 35 minutes last night, Rangers were really under the cosh and were, to use the phrase, were under siege by Panathinaikos, and John Souttar proved how good a siege defender he is. I thought when he had to defend, he was absolutely outstanding last night. Is it just one of those things that it is horses for courses? John Souttar he's a decent ball player, but there was even a few times last night where he steps out and gives the ball away. We can't, again, like I was saying, we were talking about the Butland issue, is sacrificing the football ability that Russell Martin wants worth having a defender that can defend?
I think in John Souttar's case, I think he'll learn that side of the game better. You could see throughout the last couple of seasons that he's actually got a decent range of passing in him. I think that asking him as part of his game to be the guy that's stepping out, because he did do it on occasion. I think that was more like under Clement. I think it was more just, I've run out of ideas here, I'm just going to take the ball for a run. If he's been specifically asked to do that by Martin, which I think he has, I honestly don't have a problem with him doing that. Yeah, I mean, misplaced passes are going to happen, but I'm comfortable with Martin's style of play, and I do believe that John Souttar can fit that style of play. Yes, he's a kind of brick wall defender. He'll put his nut through you and stuff like that. And you can see the way he just ragdolled that guy when he was running through and took his yellow quite well for it. I like that style about him, but I do think he can play Martin's style. I really do. I don't think, and he's not a complete ball player, but I think he's got the build to make those runs moving forward and to just shove people out the way and get us further up the park. So I wouldn't be sacrificing any of the philosophies for anything at this point. I think John will come good in it. I do.
Mitch, Russell Martin very famously at this point was on Monday Night Football discussing a lot of the issues that he had at Southampton, and the big thing that he brought up that he would change is that he wished he could make the team perhaps a little bit better at the dark arts. Two times in the first half, Panathinaikos managed to break through, perhaps at times a bit of a disorganised press, and Rico Raskin within, I think it was in the first 10 minutes, and then John Souttar within the first half hour, both pull, both basically take the yellow. Is that something do you think it's obviously something that's been implemented by Russell Martin? He has clearly told them, take the yellow in the halfway line, it's all right. We obviously have to play the dark arts, but is it sometimes perhaps giving ourselves unnecessary pressure? Because it's all right doing it once or twice if you have to, but that's twice within a half that we had guys on a booking because of the way that we were playing.
I'm going to be honest, mate, and can I just chuck it straight back to you and say I think there's an element of it was first game of the season material where it was a little bit sloppy, a little bit raggy, a wee bit people not quite where they would be, and probably much less about dark arts of the game. Because you've seen little bits of the dark arts coming in where, for example, where Aaron's managed to show the referee by the way he moved his own body of, no, look, the Panathinaikos striker dived in the box and took his yellow card for it. He was very smart, very cute, very clever with where he put his body to the referee and said, nah, like, I will give you the choice to make either you will deal with it or you've set the tone for the rest of the game going forward. And I will say the referee, I think, last night got 95% of most calls right and 100% of the big calls right. I think Nico and Souttar's yellows were definitely yellows. There's no disputing it. But the major talking points, for example, like the Panathinaikos player diving in the box, it was dealt with and mopped up really, really, really quickly from him. I think he laid a marker out quite early with the first. I want to say it was the first Stern talking to. It might have been Finlay Curtis that took it maybe inside 8 minutes, but he laid a marker down of this is what I will tolerate, this is what I won't tolerate, and both of you will have to fall in line with this set of rules. And I thought that was quite well handled by the ref. But I think in terms of the dark arts and stuff, I think we were really, really good at the show and go for the foul. It's probably the best way to put it. We'll time it well enough that it's still clean and it's still legit, but it just follows on that kind of grey line of if you'd done it on a Sunday morning up in Ross County, would you take the kick? Would you take a free kick for it? Probably.
Of course, definitely. You did bring up something there that I was going to talk about. The referee, I thought, was, like I say, he was all right. Ross, we'll just talk about it. We'll talk about it all at once. The Panathinaikos, I think I couldn't tell you the last time I seen a team notoriously throwing themselves to the ground in attempts to win penalties. I thought they were pretty bad. A couple of times they just hit the ground. Obviously, the right back breaks through and dives. He gets booked for it in the first half. He then proceeds in the second half to pull down Finlay Curtis. We're talking about that arts. And, it's a clear, you don't do that when you're on a booking. This is obviously post-goal, so Finlay Curtis is on a bit of a high. He excellently wins the foul. It's a red card. It's a clear red card. Do you know what I mean? A second booking. I just thought, do you think that it's probably a little bit of, you kind of get a bit of karma? Because I mean, maybe you disagree with me. I don't know. I thought Panathinaikos were quite notorious for trying to throw themselves to the ground. A few times they went down, grabbing feet, claiming for penalties, and the referee was having none of it. And bearing in mind, VAR was in play as well.
I did. What I don't agree with you on is that you've not seen that for a while. The picking up litter on the way off the park must have made you forget about Kyogo there, mate. If you've seen players like that, because he picks up litter doesn't mean he doesn't like it. No, to be fair, I thought the referee did a great game. Me and Mitch were talking about it earlier. I think after books Raskin, within maybe 10 minutes, one of their players does the exact same to, I think it was to Raskin over near the dugout, nae booking. And as a fan, that's the decisions that do your head in it, because and that kind of clouds your judgment. Overall, I thought he let the game go. I thought he made the big calls. And that's all you're looking for, isn't it, Ross? That's all you're looking for, is a referee that's going to try and let the game flow, but cut out the bullshit. He dived, he got away with it. As soon as he dived again, yellow cards out, and that nips it in the bud then. Obviously, we Finlay had to send the boy for a hot dog and get him sent half. But again, it's blatant. It's a blatant red card. And another point on the overall contribution Finlay Curtis has had to the tie over the two legs now is probably their best player suspended for the next leg. And all Finlay Curtis did was receive the ball in the half turn, which is what you've seen on the training footage. That's been drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled. And there you go. It's paying fruits within the first game. And it's going to pay fruits in the second game, because they're now going into it with a weakened team because of one movement that's been taught and encouraged. I think there's a difference between teaching something and encouraging boys to do it, even if they make a mistake, and that's gone back to that again. But I went around about the Hussies there to make about 10 points, but back to the referee, I thought he had a great game, yeah.
There's no point, there's no such thing as a bad point, because you've just allowed me to move on to the next point, which of course is the first goal. It's, again, Finlay Curtis, in the first half, he was not getting the ball in the half turn. Far too many times he had his back facing the Panathinaikos goal. He was facing our goal. He gets the ball in the half turn after a good break from Nico Raskin. He cuts inside and he whips a shot in. There is a slight deflection off it, but sometimes that's all you need. Steph, you make your own luck, and it's exactly what we needed. 7 minutes after the half, in which we weren't great in the first half. There's no bones about it. The roof comes off Ibrox, and that's what more could you ask for? That you come out the second half when you've been bad and you lay down a marker right away, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we kind of seen that? We and I think it was a famous Clement line of saying that we take 45 minutes to warm up, so it's still a bit of that residual stuff carrying over. But yeah, I remember thinking to myself, we need an early goal. We need an early goal. And I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't think it was going to come from Finlay Curtis because he had a very poor first half. He was doing a lot of the good things, but I found myself like screaming at him, take a man on. So we had wingers that will take guys on for a long time, and I'm screaming at him, take him on. And the first time that he actually drives at people, he gets in and scores an absolute wonder goal for his age, for the exposure he's had to first team football, which isn't a lot. He's been at Rangers since he was like 6 or 8 or something like that. Absolute dream come true for the boy. But it was his doing. It was his eagerness, his absolutely lack of fear because he is just a boy, just taking the ball and running at people. And we have lacked that for so long. You've seen in the past, we tried to do too many passes. We tried to do cute passes, or we're only doing balls over the top and we don't have any pace and blah, blah. We've seen it all. But that, for me, was a sign of Russell Martin's style. Don't have any fear, run at people. Because at the end of the day, you might have a big lug of a CB that can't turn, and you're running at him, or he doesn't know what to do with you. Because everyone goes on about Cameron Carter-Vickers at Celtic. You run at him and he shits himself, excuse my language. You run at him and he absolutely just doesn't know what to do with you. So I like the instilling the fact, no fear. Do what I'm telling you to do. You'll never get reprimanded if you make a mistake, as long as you've got the intent. That's what Russell Martin says, and that's exactly what the boy done. So first goal, absolute set the tone for the second half. You could just see we had the hunger after that. So yeah, fair play to the boy. I didn't think he had it in him on a night like that, but he scored something kind of similar sort of angle against Bruges in the friendly. So he's clearly got it in the locker. So long may it continue.
Absolutely, and of course, we at the Rangers don't know, we don't condone swearing or bad language. It's never ever been used by any of our members ever. Shocking behaviour. Mitch, Russell Martin used the word courage a lot. He's using that a lot. Finlay Curtis has the courage to take the ball, run at his man, cut inside, and take a shot from an area in which, in the past, we've been notoriously bad at playing the safe pass. Even during the game last night, we were bad for it. At times, I thought we could have still chose to play a more progressive pass or shoot. That's okay. Like we say, we've been talking about, the theme of this has been that we're still learning. We're still trying to get the full ins and outs of how the team's going to play. But he does it, and obviously what we'll come on to, the second goal, is by players being courageous and not being afraid to take a shot from that angle. And as long as you hit the target, you're always in with a shout.
Do you know something? Last night with Finlay Curtis, and I think we've seen those of us that have kind of followed bits of the B team and stuff when there was a B team, Finlay Curtis was knocking them in for fun from angles like that in the B team. And it's nice to see that, as Steph touched on there, it's that ignorance of youth with the way that he played of, sack it, just do it. What is the worst that's going to happen? You had it off the peg and it goes into the Clyde. Whatever, nobody's going to shout at you for it. But he timed it so perfectly, and I like the way as well that in the build up to it, he sold his man for a hot dog on the way for it, and just having that almost sheer arrogance of youth, just to look at your man and say, do you know what? As you're attempting to foul me, I'm firing this off. And fair play to the boy. He done it. He done it, and he done it with style, and his celebration was fantastic. And I think one of the underrated things with Russell Martin, that I think I've touched on previously with yourself, is he's not afraid to put young players in the team. He's done it with the likes of Will Smallbone, for example, when he was down at Southampton. He's done it with the likes of Flynn Downs when he was over at Swansea. He's done it with others, a couple others down there as well at Swansea. I think it was Alfie May as well down there. He's done it with quite a few youngsters where I think it's almost that Sir Alex Ferguson type, mindset of, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And you look at that, and now certainly not going to compare, Finlay Curtis to like say Yamal, for example, but you look at that and two young players of a similar age, and the only reason that these players are going to continue to get better is to keep playing in the first team and have that exposure, and having a manager that's not afraid to say, I trust you to put you there, I think gives a huge air of confidence to a young player like that. And again, the only way that in 3-4 years' time, hopefully, let's say young Finlay keeps kicking on the way that he's kicking on, it becomes an incredibly sellable asset that is pure profit for the team going forward. And, he can only become a sellable asset, that's worth a decent whack of money at, say, 21, 22-year-old, if he's got those, say, 100 first-team appearances underneath his belt. That's one thing that we've seriously lacked. And in the world of, profit and sustainability rules and PSR rules and everything else that follows that, for, as I call it, stat shaggers to go and worry about spreadsheets rather than myself. Like, the only way that you're going to balance books is having good academy players that go on for a good few quid down the road, because these players are pure profit down the road. By all means, let's give the boy whatever he needs to do right now to make him successful over the next 18 months to 2 years. And let's enjoy him while we've got him, I think. Also, can we all put £1 in the swear jar each? Because I'm pretty sure they've just turned their purple this evening, especially that Ross Clark. He's a menace, that one.
I haven't yet. I have to be the respectful host of
I'll go
the journal. Listen, wait till we get on to Gassama. I might have to break it. Ross, obviously we've waxed lyrical about Finlay Curtis. He was probably, the surprise. I think he's been the surprise package of pre-season. Russell Martin's been very open that he's been looking for players to be surprised. So we'll move on. Perhaps not to be negative, but there's a comment a little while ago, of course, from Gordon. We'll talk about Danilo. Danilo has been a little bit, he's been racking up numbers, if you want to use the phrase that the kids have been saying in pre-season. He has been scoring, albeit they're behind closed-door games, but he seems to be contributing. But last night, nothing came off for him, did it? Was it just a bad night at the office, or bearing in mind that he seems to be the guy that Russell Martin might fancy? We understand that Cyril Dessers and Hamza Egeman are not fit, and they have been linked with moves elsewhere. Is the more, I don't want to say versatile forward, but the more active forward, perhaps, the guy that Russell Martin wants? But if we're going to get performances like that, it can't be the guy, can he?
I think you look at the games where he scored the goals, Dunfermline and Hamilton. I think Danilo is your ideal guy when you've played in Europe on the Tuesday, the Wednesday or the Thursday, and you're going to Fir Park, St Mirren, no Livingston because he's made of chocolate. But if you're going to the kind of grounds the boys have ran their guts out for 90 minutes in the midweek in Europe, and that's Danilo is more than capable of producing moments. Last night, I think there's probably a few factors at play. I don't think in his whole Rangers career, the full time he's been here, has he had a chance to say, you're the guy, it's your jersey, go and lose it. And under the lights at Ibrox, first game of the season, I think that added a bit of pressure onto him, because he knows that Dessers and Egeman are now breathing down his neck. What I would say is I don't think he was helped. I think we saw last year, around about Christmas time, when he had Egeman wanting to interchange with him and Czerny, who he already had a relationship from for their time playing together in Holland. I think last night there was absolutely no connection between him, Dowell and Curtis, to be honest. I didn't think he got a lot of service. And when the ball did come through him, he still looked rusty. There was one that Raskin plays an unbelievable dummy, and it kind of skips off, and Danilo's on his heels a wee bit and gets caught. I don't think he's going to fire you to the title. I don't think he's your man for big games. I don't even know if he's your guy for playing against two big hairy arse. There's my pound in the the jar as well. Don't know if he's to play against two big hairy arse centre halves in Scottish football who are going to manhandle you. I don't think he likes the rough and tough, and I don't know if is that a mental thing when about the bad injuries he's sustained since he's got here, because I don't think he had a particularly bad injury record when we signed him. Has that maybe knocked his confidence? But looking at next week, I think if Igamani and Dessers get 60 minutes on Saturday and can offer something, then I think his place might be in jeopardy. And I think that the report you've got on there, the now that we're looking at, kind of tells a story. And he never offered much of nothing last night, and that was his big chance.
It was his big chance. He did, like you say, he did have a chance in the first half. It was deflected wide, a decent volley. But like you say, perhaps maybe we're being a little bit unfair is that he didn't get perhaps the service required. You did say there, probably the best we've seen him is linking up with Egaman. And like I say, that's probably not going to be the long-term Rangers front three. You'd probably imagine that when Gassama's fit, he'll play. We've got Thelo Asgard to come in. We have been linked with other, kind of right-sided attackers as well. So you would like to imagine that we're probably not going to be supporting Danilo with Kieran Dowell and Finlay Curtis every single game. So I suppose it is horses for courses, and I have to agree with that. Steph, obviously, we started, as the game wears on, we're trying to break Panathinaikos down. They go down to the fabled low block, although they were trying to kind of catch us on the break. But one thing I think we did do, and I thought we'd done very, very impressively, was continue to pin them back, not be afraid, which sometimes I think we can be notoriously bad for playing against 10 men. We've seen that a lot over the last few years, that we seem to almost play worse against 10 men, which is, I don't understand it, but we have been. But I thought last night was probably the best we've seen against a depleted team for a long time. And once we make the substitutions, Gassama comes on, Dessers comes on, Egaman comes on, and we basically we're going for another goal. I think at that point, I don't think you can bring on, apologies, Badrami comes on as well. So at one point, we've got 4 brand new attackers on the park, so we're going to try and kill the game off. We obviously catch Panathinaikos down on the right-hand side. Max Aarons has come across to help cover, plays a great kind of turn, Cruyff turn in the corner, plays it out to Egaman with a wonderful flick inside, and plays the ball across to Diamandi, who breaks forward, and Gassama's out on the left-hand side. He takes his man on. He's only been on the park for, 90 seconds, 2 minutes at this point. He cuts inside, and he hits an absolute thunder bastard. There's my pound. Into the corner. It is an absolutely sensational finish. He looks like he's going to cover, hit the ball across the goalie. Right at the last second, he cuts his foot in, hits it in the near post. What a finish, and what a way to introduce yourself to Rangers.
Absolutely, and I love his post-match presser as well, when he was talking about how he said, I looked up and I seen the goalie. That's somebody for me that can think that quickly on their feet. That he's got to be an absolute screamer for Rangers, that boy. And just the fact that he had that intelligence, he could have just swung his leg at it and it could have went anywhere. But he says, I looked and I seen where the goalie was, I seen his movement, and I like you say, last minute kind of changed what he was going to do. And if he can continue to do that, then yeah, he's a starter for sure, 100%. But he's going to score a barrel load of goals, and which is what we've been missing from our wide players. Is we just don't. And I know people always have a go at Dessers, but the guy scoring 50 odd goals over 2 seasons, and we still moan at him. He's the only guy scoring goals over the last 2 seasons, hence why we're so far behind and couldn't win a lot of games. If we can get wingers that can contribute, if we could get Dio or Raskin contributing to the goals as well. Dio wasn't as much of a goal threat as Raskin was trying to be, but if we can get that front maybe 5 trying to score, it'll happen, because I can tell that Russell Martin wants goals from all over. Can't just be relying on your number 9, especially if our number 9's Danilo and is not really up for it just now. So the boy Gassama was just, he warned us. He said he brings something different, and he absolutely did. I can't wait to see him at full fitness. I think he can play either on the right or the left. I think he's naturally right-footed, but he can do that. I'd love to have seen Thelo Asgard in that team. I'd love to have known who he was going to play instead. Who played instead of him because of his injury. But yeah, I can't wait to see that boy Gassama. And if we can get a Czerny-esque on that right side, say bye-bye to Dowell and his beautiful legs, and just I think I'm honestly really excited about this season, guys. I think I had a bit of trepidation about Martin at the beginning, obviously, just given of kind of lack of stature, but when you're a man manager like that and you've got a style and you've got a philosophy and you actually understand tactics, it can go a long way. So I can't wait to see what he can bring out of Gassama. Definitely.
I couldn't agree more. I think Russell Martin's a guy that he's obviously come in knowing that he's perhaps not the popular choice amongst the support, but he's given us all so far, and bearing in mind it's one game, so you cannot read too much into it. This time next week, after the game in Athens, we could have an even bigger reason to be excited. I think next week in Athens will be a real litmus test for him. Guys, I think that will just do us for the night. But I just wanted to, of course, come back and just ask you, how wrong is the man of the match given to us by FootMob? Mitch, who was your man of the match and why?
I'm just gonna batter FootMob, to be honest with you, for taking it away from the young'un that deserved it last night. Given the importance of his goal, given his overall contributions, and given the mental strength to bounce back from a sticky first half where it was a wee bit indifferent. Finlay Curtis has to take man of the match for me, and I think in the stadium he was right first. It was the right call to give it to the young'un. Which again just gives him that extra wee shot in the arm of confidence there as well. I think just that wee, I don't care if it's overhyping our own kids. God damn it, give him it and overhype him. I genuinely don't care. Put him in a rocket, send him to the moon with his confidence. Let them be that confident. And I think that's why, for me, in the stadium, they got it right. I'm also going to touch on the Danilo comments, because I feel like Danilo's been unfairly battered a little bit here. That last night Danilo could only work with what he was provided with, and what he was provided with was dog meat for the first 45 minutes of the game. I think it wasn't helped with the fact that Kieran Dowell ran about like he was hot dog buns rather than hot dog legs. There wasn't much going on from coming from his more favoured side, and I think because as a team it took us maybe 20-25 minutes. It took us maybe 20-25 minutes to kind of find our groove and kind of settle in as a team a wee bit more. I think it could have genuinely been any one of our front three that started that game, and I think any of them probably would have had a bit of a stagnant first hour while we were hitting the strides. And I think Danilo performs best when Danilo gets a bit of a run of games behind him, and I think what we all need to remember is it's a long old 60-game season, depending on how things pan out. We're going to need everybody to chip in, and whether that be, as Steph and Ross have touched on, whether that be coming on at a weekend after some heavy European outings, or whether that be being the guy that needs to come on in the hour because we just need a little something different. Because we've had maybe Hamza and Dessers running a defence ragged for an hour and a half. Certainly not an hour and a half. If we've had them running ragged, for 70 minutes, and a defence just wants a fox in the box, for example, just to pop in and just cause a carnage, that's exactly that's why you have multiple strikers in your team, because each one should bring you something different. Dessers and Iggy provide that physical. Dessers gives you that physical robustness and that element of unpredictability of what he's going to do. I love that from him, as we all know. Iggy gives you that the ball is like Velcro to his feet, and he's special and he's got something special in the locker. Danilo gives you the moments. I think he is the player that he's proven it against Celtic, he's proven it against in other big games, and he put his body on the line. And I think he's probably guilty of getting that. He's probably guilty of getting the Tom Lawrence treatment, where we all go, well, because you've been on the treatment table for a little while, and because Barry never gave him a run of games towards the back end of last season, it's dead easy to point the finger and go, you might be the stink. So I think give him a fresh start like the manager has.
I think that's the name of the game, is that everybody gets a fresh start, and we like what we're seeing. Ross, can I just trouble you for your man of the match?
Joe Raphael, mate. I thought for 90 minutes on his Ibrox debut, he was robust in the tackle. Within the first 5 minutes, you just knew you were watching a classy operator, and that's what we've missed in there. See somebody that does the basics, controls the tempo, no scared to get on the ball in tight spaces. And I think as the game grew on, he actually then grew in confidence a bit. We had a bit more structure and shape in the second half, and I think that he then offered a good range of passing as well. I was really, really impressed with Rothwell. Shout out obviously goes to Curtis. I've went back to him 3 or 4 times or this for the defensive side, and as Mitch says, like, it's about time we had a youngster that we can clamour and tell everybody how good he is, and I hope that continues. And again, he might be similar to Danilo, whereby Gassama plays in Europe because they're fighting over one position. The likes of the biggest compliment you compare him is there was £8 million worth of players that could have started that game last night that are fully fit, and Cortez and Bajrami, and Curtis was picked. So obviously a shout out to him. But for me, you could say Butland as well. Real top performances for the first game of the season. But for me, Rothwell just looked a bit more polished, and me and Doug are going to need to have words about that stats. We're going to need to get a new stat supplier, because if Rothwell was pulling in a 7.2 and Diamande was pulling in a 7.6, I want to have words.
Hold on, it wasn't Dougie. It wasn't Doug. Like, I also done it as just people were asking where the journal stats came from. These are from FootMob, like the ones that we've had in the graphics tonight. Nothing to do with us.
Did Doug pull them together?
Aye, Doug pulled them
together.
That's what I'm saying.
We need to find a new stat. We need to go to StatsBomb or something. We need to find a new. That's no factual data. That
just use my player ratings. They never cause any controversy.
What I would say as well, touching on Doug, he kind of made my point for me in the comments, because he says Danilo is. How can you say Danilo's scared of contact? He broke his face scoring a goal last year. That's exactly what I mean. He's never had an injury record before he got here. And since he's got here, he's ended up with a couple of bad injuries that could have affected his confidence. I'm not getting on it, Danilo. I think Danilo's a classy operator. But I think that he needs a totally different type of service for what we gave last night.
Yeah, definitely. Stephanie, is there anything that's been mentioned or not been mentioned that you think is probably in with a shout? It's actually nice to have a game where we could get 3 or 4 players to choose from, whereas usually we're fighting over why somebody should get it and not who should get it. Is there anybody, do you agree with anybody that's been mentioned?
I actually was thinking about Rothwell as well, because you just watch him, he's just a class act. He's comfortable to take the ball in the turn and starting the play, and we've been crying out for that, and Raskin was trying to do that when he was playing a more of a 6, and he didn't have the movement around him. But Rothwell has the eye for the pass and the intelligence of the game. He's going to be absolutely phenomenal for us. But I have to agree with Mitch. I have to give it a wee Curtis. The occasion, the age, the rough start, the defensive work, the moving forward, and just the way he took his goal, have to give it the wee man. But I wanted to give a shout to Big Jigga as well, because I think that people will probably only remember his mistakes, but then he recovered every single one. He won every duel. He won every aerial duel. He done 4 recovery runs or something like that. He was absolutely solid. And for his debut under the lights in that kind of atmosphere, I thought he was pretty solid as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing more what he can do. But for me, Curtis, 100%.
I think what's important there with Jigger, sorry, just to kind of polish that off, was last night his positional play was amazing.
Aye.
Like, he was really good at holding that line and making sure that I am the line, because whoever that was in the comments, I think it was Bob that referred to me as Hordor. I'll have words with you later when I find out who you are. But he held the door, so to speak, and said, "This is our line. Come break it. I dare you, because I'll play you offside. I'll make you go offside." And I think there was a lot of kind of going back into that kind of dark arts, but when you talk about it, it's a bit of a dying art in the game of forcing the striker to go offside. And I think he was really, really good with that, and I think it's something that's worth keeping a wee eye on over the next few games.
Can I just dive in a wee quick second, Roscoe, because I seen a comment for Doug again. You're not going to tell me Diamande passing the ball to Gassama 80 yards for goal means he was better than anybody just because that's an assist. This is why XG and all that is nonsense. Get it out, Sharon. I've had enough. Yeah, you look like that guy actually, Roscoe, by the way, the get it out guy.
Get your tap off a wee minute, Ross.
Get him out, Sharon. It's either him or me. Get him out, Sharon. Thanks. I don't know. It's missing an egg off the top of my head, and we'll
anyone cracks an egg off your head, they can come see me.
If anything, if you don't learn anything tonight from the Rangers Journal, folks, it's that stats mean hee-haw, and I'll agree with you there. Stats mean hee-haw. The eye test is the most important thing at Rangers. Stats mean nothing. For what it's worth, no that MD cares. Joe Rothwell was the man. Shout out to Butland, but Joe Rothwell is the player we've been looking for since Stephen Davis left, in my opinion. Bearing in mind, it's one game, and I'm not getting carried away, but he's got to win as a treble. Just saying that. And of course, we'll just leave it there because we went over an hour. So of course, the boss man will moan at us because you know what he's like.
I will be getting a bumps felt later with a bit of luck.
I absolutely hope not. You can do what you want. It's got nothing to do with me. I'll go back to looking like the Pillsbury boy again. Of course, thank you so much to my wonderful guests for joining us. It's nice to have a good result and a good performance to talk about. Firstly, Mitchell, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Roscoe.
Thank you very much. Just for confirmation, have I dropped down the table any, Mitch, or am I still sitting on the table?
Joint top.
No, there's no way. There's no way.
Has to be a draw at the moment. The week's young, but
real Roscoe must have it on. Real Roscoe must have it on away good looks. No away goals in this league. It's away good looks. He must be winning based on away goals.
He offered to winch me before the pod. That's all I'm saying, mate.
Lucky man.
We can have that. We can put that out for the Friday news. That we can have at the end of the Friday news show, just before 1 o'clock. We'll have the weekly Ross rating released by the gaffers.
Ross Graham's in the relegation zone.
Well, there's always time. You might have to bring in Neil Warnock to get him out. Yeah, Steph, thank you.
Thanks very much. Pleasure as always.
Of course, thank you so much to our sponsors. First of all, at Off to the Match I Go. If you go over there for all top tier Rangers memorabilia, use the code Journal10. You will get 10% off your first order. Of course, we are on all the socials. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on X, we're on YouTube, we are on TikTok. We're on TikTok, guys. That is how up to date we are, and we're on Twitch as well.
RedTube, whatever we do.
Well, after this show, we might be on RedTube. We might have to go on RedTube. The only place it'll take us. Of course, thank you so much again to everybody for listening. The guys will be back tomorrow at 9:30 with your usual Thursday show. And of course, remember that every night is your Rangers Journal night, and we'll speak to you again very, very soon. Good night.